Talk about patents, because you're getting a patent yourself, right? So
Yes.
talk about process a little bit.
Patents is a whole thing. It's nice to be within the University of Washington because if you work with them, and I think the University of Washington is in a good place where now where they've benefited and generated a lot of income from their patents. I think there was a place where when I was the director of the Center for Industrial Medical Ultrasound they weren't defending as many of his patents, but now I think they're in a place where they have generated a lot of revenue from people selling their startups and companies. So they have the money to defend patents and invest more in patenting. And so if you are one of their companies, if your IP comes from them and they have a bunch of lawyers, you can kind of go through the different stages. They'll pay for it. If they see potential in it, they will fund it most of the way. On the other side, my company Ultropia is not associated to the university and we don't want to pay royalties on it. So we're very, very careful that all of these resources that we're getting from the university, we're not doing any technical development with. And so we draw this line with our funding to make sure that we're not doing technical development with certain pools of funding that we get. Otherwise, the university could claim ownership of our IP. And so we're very, very careful with that. In terms of patents, there's very many stages of patents. And so just starting with your utility patent, getting that process correct, you can do it. There's different resources. I would say this is when I would say there are lawyers who will help you write it. It costs maybe $3,000 or some of the quotes that I've heard. And then maybe higher than that if you want them to write it all. And I would recommend even just having them help you write it can be really beneficial. And then utility patents can probably maybe around $7,000 I would budget for that. And then the next stage, I would say turning it into the provisional, that's where it gets a little bit more expensive. I've heard people spending maybe like $35,000 on their patent. And then we would like an international patent so we can work with some of these international manufacturers. And so it gets expensive from there. You have just like a few months after so you have about a year on your provisional, about a year on your utility before you need to file your international patent. You can get an extension, a PCT, which lasts about 18 months. And then after that, you would need to get patents in every single country that you wanted a patent in. I think it is beneficial at this time to get a patent in China. It's kind of been back and forth, but China's defense system is getting a lot better. And so I think you are able to defend it in China. At the same time, I love things like Prusa, who keep their IP completely open source. And they have gone out of the way to, like, they don't patent anything and they just innovate and they just innovate. And people come to them and they're like, hey, we're knocking you off. We're manufacturing this. You need to stop doing this. We have the patent, but they have managed to not get any patents. They just simply reply and they're like, you can't patent this. This is like old technology. Like, we're in the right. We have a right to produce this. And they keep innovating and they keep producing, and all of their stuff is out there available to anyone. So I love that as well. They are based in Europe. Maybe it's easier in Europe. In America, it does seem like we patent everything.